Greetings, my name is Trifler and welcome to Explorminate. I have a ship design video here about using missiles in interstellar space genesis. I'm making this video because in my Let's Play I'm using kinetic weapons and briefly covering beam weapons, but I'm not planning on using any missiles. So here we are with 6 pre-designed ships here. Using nuclear and Polaris missiles. This is on weapon level 3, defense level 2. So I didn't want to go too far. Weapon level 3 is when I think nuclear gets good, and when you first unlock Polaris. Defense level 2 is when you get shields 2. I think that's a good place to start with building ships. And so now, why nuclear over Polaris? The main reason is Polaris, when you first unlock it, has no miniaturization. And in this game, my rule of thumb is state-of-the-art weapons are not ready. Doesn't matter what they are, they're just not ready. The only exception to that would be with spinal mounted weapons, because they don't take up any space and they can't use mods anyway. Alright, so you can see under the Polaris you don't get any mods, don't have any miniaturization. So our nuclear frigate here has miniaturization 2. I've chosen the fast and the MERV mods. Now the fast mod is really the minimum I think any missile should use. Without that, you know, the battle's pretty much over before the missile can even get to the target. We're talking 4 or 5 turns sometimes to hit. And that also gives more time for their point defenses to shoot the missiles. Potentially 2 shots instead of 1. The MERV is really good. This only becomes available at miniaturization 2 or higher. This will multiply the damage by 4. It's what it really does. However, you do not get more hit points, but it's a lot of damage. And I'll go over these other 2 in a bit. You can see here we're doing 28 damage with 1 nuclear missile instead of 7, or well, you could do 14. Okay. We've been able to fit full shields and maneuverability of 4. I've got battle pods on here. So now I wouldn't normally use a frigate for missiles. I'm mostly using it here for an example. But you can see it certainly works. Before weapon level 3, you might not be able to really get anything. It depends on what you're willing to sacrifice. So under Polaris, you can see we're still doing 28 damage in this case, but we do not have fast, and we had to reduce it to maneuverability of 1 and only the front shield. So we're giving up a lot just to get the same damage, and without fast it's much less likely to actually be useful in battle. Alright, I also wanted to show with the nuclear we can actually choose to remove the battle pods. If we wanted to save a lot of production, yeah, so I mean, that is an option. However, another thing you could do is add one of these 2, either the heavily armored, which adds HP, or ECCM to counter enemies that have an ECM jammer. Now, you never really want to use both. You pick one depending on what your enemy is using. So if you choose the HP, this effectively gives the nuclear missiles the same HP as the Polaris missiles. And you can see it does fit without any sacrifices here. Or we can use ECCM, same deal. Usually your enemy will choose either to go for point defense or for ECM, and then that's how you do it. So like a space monster, well, they actually have, they might have both, but most AIs don't. Moving on to the destroyer. Here I have 84 damage with the nuclear, and we can only get 56 with the Polaris. It doesn't really matter what you do, you can give up everything. You're not going to get more. Cruiser. Okay, here we've got okay. And 126 over here, so we're clearly getting more here. And also, I was able to squeeze in 2 that have the HP mod. Now, if you do this, I recommend making the top one the one that has the HP, so that it takes the initial volley for the from the enemy PD, and then these can come in, hopefully, right behind them without getting shot. Now I do like to put light armor on my missile ships because they're just going to sit in the back and fire their missiles, and if they do run out of missiles before the battle is over, they can just warp out. They don't need to stick around unless they just, I don't know, you want them around for some reason. And let's see. Now another thing I wanted to cover is, say you have these 9 missiles, whether they're whatever type of missile it might be. You can just split them up into 2 or 3 groups. And why would you want to do that? Well, like I showed with the nuclear one, you might be able to give a mod to just a couple or one group of them. Or in this case, the reason I would want to do this is you can fire at different targets. Each group can fire at one target. In something like Stars and Shadow, that game, what they did is they made it so when you fire at an enemy, it will actually calculate how many are needed to destroy that target and reserve the rest for you to use somewhere else. This game doesn't do that. I don't really mind that it doesn't do that because it does give you the option of dividing into groups. And really, that's not necessarily realistic. You're not going to know exactly how many shots you need to destroy the enemy. You're just going to let them have it and hope you take them out. And so, in this case, we're going to be able to shoot at 3 different targets. Likewise, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that each PD group can only fire at one group of missiles. So if they have one PD group, they're only going to be able to shoot at one of these, and the other 2 will get through unscathed. Now, I haven't done enough testing to be 100% sure on that, so just know that, but I believe that's how it works. I've chosen to just have the front shield here, mainly because it doesn't fit. Otherwise, if it did, I would go with 3 arcs. The front shield is really all you need most of the time, because you're sitting back again. Let's see. Okay, I want to mention also that when you upgrade your armor technology to say tungsten or tritanium, I believe it is. Well, anyway, other armors. It does not improve the hit points of the missiles. I know there are a couple of games out there where that does improve your missile hit points. Not in this one, so just be aware of that. Now, why do I make specialized missile ships? If you go into, say, my mouse is wigging out. Alright, so the AI will like to do, let's see if we can get it to, let me go to a bigger ship. Yeah, the AI likes to mix a lot of the time. I really don't like to do that because smaller groups of missiles are easier to shoot down, and when the missiles run out, then the ship only has a limited amount of firepower to continue on with. It also makes it difficult to manage your fleet. You can't build what you need for the current situation. You're just kind of stuck with these mixed ships. So I like to make specialized ships. It also allows me to do this light armor front shield thing. Don't necessarily need as much maneuverability. It's good to have maneuverability, but you don't have to have it as much as you would on a beam ship or a projectile ship, for example. And you can really get a lot out of your fleet by doing it this way. I would say the Polaris will get good around weapon level 5. Potentially you could use it at weapon level 4 with fast, but I still think I'd still go with the nuclear until weapon level 5. Because you can go like this and you have the same hit points as Polaris, so that's a good way to go. And then when you get to quantum, well, okay, so weapon level 5 you'll unlock quantum, and I think Polaris is good at that point. And then at weapon level 7, I would say you could go with the quantum missiles. And that's, that's due to the miniaturization, and that's not unbalanced. That's the way it's intended. And I think it works very well. I haven't seen a game do it real well in a sense like Mu 2. Potentially Mu 3, although, that game didn't go so well. And, yeah, I mean, I've seen, let's see, I don't remember the name, but there was another game that had miniaturization, but it really didn't have a lot of point because the new weapons were always better. And that's really not what you want if you're going to have miniaturization. I do wish the AI was a little better at designing ships. It's because this autogen is also what your AI competitors use. And I think probably the easiest fix would just be to make it so that the AI cannot use state-of-the-art weapons, not use weapons of the same weapon level they've unlocked. And it's really only the weapon level that they have to worry about. Shields, it's fine to use the same defense level. I mean, it's better to use a smaller one, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. But with the weapons, it is a huge deal. And I wouldn't really necessarily want the AI to make ships as good as we can if we really try. Mostly because I think there should be some reward for getting in here and doing this sort of stuff. But I think just blocking the AI from using state-of-the-art weapons would really go a long way, and hopefully the developers will look at that at some point. With that in mind, just keep in mind that when you do use missiles, that means your own space stations and battle stations and so on are gonna use missiles after that, because we don't get to design our own space stations. And they typically just use either unmodded or fast missiles. I've really never seen them use extra hit points or ECCM. I've never seen a station use MIRV. I think I have seen a ship use MIRV, but, once in a blue moon. So that's something that does act to the detriment of your own stations, but if you're on the offense, that's not going to matter. Likewise, when you research something like your own ECM jammer, then your space stations do use those. I have found if you start researching a whole bunch of special modules, sometimes the space station really uses up a lot of space, like with 4 or 5 different specials. That can be bad. I really don't have a solution for that, except maybe don't choose specials that you aren't planning on using yourself. Although ECM Jammer can be good to have on a station even if you're not using it. But the others, not so much. Would I go for larger ships, say battleships or Titans? I definitely wouldn't do a specialized missile Titan. I want the Titan to be focused on whatever its strength is for that faction. The battleship, I mean, you can, but I wouldn't. I think one of the beauties of having these specialized missile ships is, you could stick with just destroyers for the whole game, missile destroyers, because they don't really. Okay, in this case, you are getting more missiles on the cruiser, but I do find that sometimes it's really just an even number, like twice as many missiles here as you get on a destroyer, and then you might as well just build 2 destroyers. It's the same number of support points, it's the same amount of build cost, but it depends on how it turns out. In this case, we have, well, this is an even number, 6 compared to 3. But over here we have 9 compared to 4. But then again, these Polaris missiles aren't what we want to use right now, and that might change by the time we get to weapon level 5. So another benefit of using the destroyers is you can build them anywhere. You don't need to have a planet with a space station, and that's really good. And early on, I mean, I don't know. Trying to think of a good use case for the frigates. I guess if you're the Sulak, you could build, say, 5 or 6 of these and try to overwhelm the enemy with the missiles. I haven't actually tried that, so, you might want to give that a go. Lastly, I'm going to go over point defense, I think, here. So you notice I already mentioned this already, but the nuclear has 4 hit points per missile. The Polaris has 8. And you can use the HP mod to increase the nuclear missiles to the same hit points as the Polaris. And I believe that continues through the entire tech tree like that. So if you have point defenses, say you have, I don't have it in this game. Well, let's say you have 1 laser. Alright. By itself, that's not going to shoot down even a single missile. I don't know, maybe you can get criticals. I'm not sure if that happens in this game. So the only way you would shoot down a missile is if you have 2 ships close together and they combine shoot down the missile. So you really need multiple lasers and point defense to give you any protection, any real protection. Now the tungsten gun, I originally, when I started playing this game, thought it was a terrible point defense weapon. Why would you want something so heavy, it takes up so much space, rather, as a point defense weapon? But then, once I realized the nuclear missiles have 4 hit points, the tungsten gun does 4 damage as a point defense weapon. Now I'm not certain whether this is 4 or 3.5 rounded up. If it's actually doing 3.5, that's not going to work. But if it's 4, then yeah, we're going to shoot down a missile. And when I compare 1 tungsten gun to 2 lasers, the tungsten gun is then lighter, or takes up less space, however you want to look at it. Alright, even when you're doing a 360, now I will say I usually think 270 is fine. The missiles are going to come from the opposite side of the screen. The enemy is not going to get behind you unless they get like the combat jump special, or unless you specifically move your ship behind them. But you should not be doing that if you're using a specialized missile ship. So yeah, 270 works very well in my experience. Another thing you might be concerned about with a tungsten gun is the ship attack might not be high enough. Because if they're using missiles with fast, I didn't cover that. Fast also, besides going faster, it provides plus 40 missile defense. So like ship defense, it's the same thing. So the missile is that much harder to hit. So yeah. So in that case, you might find lasers more effective, or perhaps fusion beams, because they also have a point defense option. I don't think, let me see, neutron beams, yeah, they do not have point defense. Graviton flux does not have point defense. Phasers do, if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure. So, railgun does not. So, that's something to pay attention to as you go through choosing your weapons. Okay, I believe that covers everything I can think of at the moment. And I've got a list I made here, and I've covered everything on that. So I hope this was helpful for you, and if you want to see more about the other weapon types, then I do have a Let's Play going. And take care. Thanks. Bye.